There is a financial mistake so expensive that the people most likely to make it are often the smartest people in the room. Not because they lack information, because they trust their own thinking more than reality. If intelligence automatically created wealth, the richest people on earth would be professors, economists, and mathematicians. They aren't. History keeps repeating a far more uncomfortable pattern. The people who understand money the best often make the most expensive mistakes. And the frightening part is that they rarely see those mistakes while they're making them. Every one of them believes they're being rational. So here's the question. Nobody asks, why do so many intelligent people build impressive careers, but never build real financial freedom? The answer has very little to do with money. It has everything to do with how intelligent people make decisions. Imagine two graduates leaving the same university. They have similar grades, similar intelligence, similar ambition, and they begin their careers at almost exactly the same time. Fast forward 30 years. One owns businesses, investments, and assets that generate income, whether they work or not. The other still depends on a salary, still worries about the economy, still cannot stop working. Most people explain that gap with luck, but luck struggles to explain what happened next on Wall Street. In the 1990s, long-term capital management became one of the most respected hedge funds in the world. Its partners included legendary traders and two Nobel Prize-winning economists. If anyone understood financial risk, it should have been them. Instead, they built one of the greatest financial collapses in modern history. They didn't fail because they were unintelligent. They failed because they became convinced their models described reality better than reality itself. Their intelligence became a shield against doubt. And that's the moment intelligence becomes dangerous. Because once being right becomes part of your identity, changing your mind starts to feel like losing. Think about the last important decision you regret. You probably didn't think, I'm making a mistake. You thought, this is the logical thing to do. Every catastrophic decision starts that way. Not with ignorance, with certainty. And that raises a disturbing possibility. What if the biggest obstacle between you and wealth isn't what you don't know, but what you're absolutely convinced you already understand? Modern education teaches us to solve problems. Wealth rewards something completely different. The ability to behave rationally when emotions become expensive. Almost everyone already knows the basic rules of investing. Buy quality assets. Think long-term, stay invested, don't panic. None of those ideas are secret. Yet, year after year, countless investors underperform the very funds they own. How is that possible? Because knowing the rule and following the rule are two completely different skills. In March 2020, global markets collapsed with extraordinary speed. Headlines predicted depression. Businesses shut down. Fear spread everywhere. Millions of intelligent people looked at exactly the same information and reached exactly the same conclusion. Sell. It felt responsible. It felt rational. It felt like risk management. Months later, markets recovered. Many of those same investors never fully recovered because they sold at precisely the wrong moment. The market didn't punish ignorance. It punished behavior. Fear has a remarkable ability to disguise itself as logic. You don't feel emotional when you're afraid. You feel certain. That's what makes emotional decisions so expensive. The same pattern appears far beyond investing. Entrepreneurs abandon businesses just before momentum appears. Professionals leave careers during temporary uncertainty. Leaders overreact to short-term setbacks while sacrificing long-term outcomes. The common denominator isn't a lack of intelligence. It's the inability to separate facts from feelings under pressure. And that's where wealth quietly begins to diverge from income. Because the people who become financially free aren't necessarily those who know the most. They're the ones who consistently behave differently when everyone else reacts. So if intelligence isn't enough, what is the missing ingredient? To answer that, we have to understand why the human mind would rather protect its beliefs than discover the truth. Most people believe wealth disappears because of bad investments. In reality, it often disappears through perfectly ordinary purchases, not because the purchases are large, because they permanently change your standard of living. Imagine receiving the promotion you've wanted for years. Your income doubles. Objectively, your financial position has improved. But something almost invisible happens before the first paycheck arrives. Your expectations move. The apartment that once felt spacious suddenly feels temporary. The reliable car now feels outdated. The holiday you dreamed about becomes the minimum acceptable standard. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the quietest destroyers of long-term wealth. The dangerous part is that it doesn't feel irresponsible. It feels like progress. Behavioral economists have shown that people quickly adapt to higher levels of consumption. What once felt like luxury soon becomes normal, and the search for the next upgrade begins again. That's why two people earning dramatically different salaries can end up with almost identical financial stress. One buys assets, the other buys a more expensive identity. Status is immediately visible. Wealth is usually invisible. No one congratulates you for increasing your investment account. Everyone notices the new car. That's why social approval compounds spending while financial freedom compounds in silence. Warren Buffett still lives in the house he bought in 1958, not because he couldn't afford something bigger, but because his identity never depended on proving his success through consumption. That may be one of the greatest financial advantages anyone can develop. So before your next expensive purchase, ask a different question. Not, can I afford it? But, will this purchase increase my freedom or simply improve the image I project? Those two goals often point in opposite directions, and once you can tell the difference, you begin making decisions that most people never even consider. By now, a pattern should be impossible to ignore. Intelligence wasn't the decisive variable. Income wasn't either. The difference has always been behavior repeated over long periods of time. People often describe Warren Buffett as the greatest investor in history, but that description hides his real advantage. He didn't become extraordinary by constantly making brilliant decisions. He became extraordinary by consistently avoiding catastrophic ones. For decades, he ignored trends that captivated everyone else. He refused businesses he didn't understand. He held cash when others mocked his patience. To the outside world, it looked like inaction. In reality, inaction was often the highest return decision available. Human beings are wired to believe movement equals progress. If business slows down, change something. If markets fall, sell something. If uncertainty appears, do anything. Action feels productive because it gives us immediate psychological relief. Compounding doesn't reward relief. It rewards discipline. Every unnecessary trade resets the clock. Every emotional purchase delays freedom. Every impulsive decision steals a little from your future self. That's why wealth almost always looks sudden from the outside. People see the billion-dollar company. They don't see 10 years of ordinary mornings spent making boring, disciplined decisions. They see the fortune. They don't see the thousands of mistakes that never happened. The invisible years always matter more than the visible moment. So stop asking which investment will change your life. Start asking which behavior, repeated every week for the next 10 years, would make failure almost impossible. That's the real engine of compounding, and it's available to almost everyone. By now, the conclusion should feel uncomfortable. Wealth was never hiding behind a secret investment strategy. It was hiding inside ordinary decisions repeated consistently. The problem is that most people review their finances only after something goes wrong. They audit their bank account, they rarely audit their judgment. Charlie Munger believed good decisions are not accidents. They are the product of a system. You don't rise to the level of your intelligence. You fall to the level of your decision process. So here's a simple framework. Every Sunday, spend 30 uninterrupted minutes reviewing your week. Ask yourself 5 questions. First, what was the most important decision I made this week? Judge the quality of the decision, not the outcome. Second, which emotion influenced it? Fear, ego, envy, impatience. Third, what evidence did I ignore because it contradicted what I wanted to believe? Fourth, which behavior moved me closer to freedom and deserves to be repeated next week? Fifth, which behavior quietly stole from my future and needs to disappear before it becomes a habit? These questions look deceptively simple, but repeated every week for years, they create something incredibly rare: They create self-awareness before mistakes become expensive. They transform wealth from an event into a direction, and they slowly replace impulsive decisions with deliberate ones. Most people spend years searching for better opportunities. The people who become wealthy spend years becoming better decision makers, because opportunities come and go. Good judgment compounds forever. For most of our lives, we're taught that success belongs to the smartest people in the room. Get better grades, learn more, collect more credentials, understand more than everyone else. Those are valuable goals, but they quietly teach a dangerous assumption that understanding automatically changes behavior. History tells a different story. Some of the most expensive financial mistakes ever made were made by people who understood money better than almost anyone alive. The difference was never information, it was judgment. That's why wealth isn't primarily an intelligence game, it's a behavioral game. The patient outperform the reactive, the humble outperform the certain. The people who quietly accumulate ownership outperform those who constantly display success. Over time, those small differences stop looking small. They become completely different lives. So perhaps the real question was never, how can I become richer? The better question is, how can I become someone who makes better decisions when nobody is watching? Because every fortune is built one decision at a time, and every financial disaster is built exactly the same way. The goal isn't to become the smartest person in the room. The goal is to become the person least likely to fool themselves. That's the kind of intelligence the market rewards, and that's the kind of intelligence that compounds for the rest of your life.